Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jill McArdle. I'm going to be rapidly firing through Section J, Health Conditions. At the end of this session, I would like to achieve these objectives. We're going to be going over the definition of Section J, Health Conditions. Falls is the only health condition under Section J. This is a new item for the LTCH CARE Data Set version 3.0, so you may want to pay particular attention. I'm going to explain the intent of Section J, discuss the coding instructions, and also we're going to go through a few practice scenarios. And since I love competition, I want to give you a heads up. You're going to need the 0, the 1, and the 2 in order to work through these scenarios, so get ready. So again, this is a new section. All items under this section are new. And the items include J1800, which is any falls since admission, and J1900, the number of falls since admission and the injury associated with the falls. So you should feel pretty good at the end of these practice scenarios because I think you're going to get them right after we review the definition of what constitutes a fall and then what constitutes an injury as it relates to a fall. So the intent of this section this section is rather obvious. These items are intended to code any fall since admission in addition to any injury caused by the fall. So this is what J1800 looks like. And the question reads, has the patient had any fall since admission? By the way, the Section J, you'll be collecting this information on the planned discharge, the unplanned discharge, and the expired assessment. So the rationale for item J1800, falls are a leading cause of morbidity and mortality in the long-term care patient population. Fear of falling can limit an individual's activity and negatively impact one's quality of life. You can imagine the negative consequences of a fall and how that might impact someone. The unintentional, so this is the definition of a fall, so this is where you should pay particular attention. This is going to be the standard definition of what constitutes a fall. So it's the unintentional change in position coming to rest on the ground, floor, or onto the next lower surface, which might be onto a bed or a chair or a bedside mat. So it's an unintentional change in position coming to the rest on the ground, floor, or onto the next lower surface. A fall may be witnessed. This is also very important. A fall may be witnessed, reported by the patient or an observer, or identified when a patient is found on the floor or ground. So even an unwitnessed fall is considered to be a fall. Falls are not a result of an overwhelming force, so if another patient pushes a patient, that is not a fall. And an intercepted fall, this is another key component of the definition. An intercepted fall occurs when the patient would have fallen if he or she had not caught him or herself, or had not been intercepted by another person. This is still considered a fall. So an intercepted fall is still considered to be a fall. You'll need that in the coding scenario, FYI. So the recommended components of the medical record that you should review in order to capture J1800 include the physician, nursing, therapy, nursing assistant notes, incident reports, and fall logs. Again, the coding instructions for J1800, you'll be asking yourself the question, has the patient had a fall since admission? Again, the 3 assessments that this will be captured under include planned, discharge assessment, unplanned discharge assessment, and expired assessment. And you'll either code 0 or 1, 0 indicating that the patient has not had a fall based on the definition that we just reviewed, or yes, the patient did have a fall. If you code 0, you'll be directed to a skip pattern on the various assessments, and if you code 1, you'll be asked to answer J1900. So here's your first coding scenario, so get your cards ready. So an incident report describes an event in which Mr. S was walking down the hall and appeared to slip on a wet spot on the floor. He lost his balance and bumped into the wall, but was able to grab onto the handrail and steady himself. So remember, you have two choices, 0 or 1, 0 indicating he did not fall, 1 indicating he fell. I see kind of a mixed response rate here, a lot of 1s, and 1 is the correct answer. One is you would answer yes, there was a fall, because an intercepted fall is considered a fall. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. The next section is J1900. This is where we start capturing the type of fall. So there are 3 parts of J1900, A, B, and C, and we'll be going over each of those. Again, we're recording the number of falls since admission and the type of falls. We're categorizing the falls. It applies again to the planned discharge, unplanned discharge, and expired assessments. You should review the same areas of the medical record for that which you reviewed for J1800, the physician notes, nursing therapy, nursing assistant notes, incident reports, and falls log. So this is what J1900 looks like. The coding instructions are here, and one thing I wanted to point out here on this particular slide is that you are to determine the number of falls that occurred since admission and code the level of fall related injury for each fall. Code each fall only once, and if the patient has multiple injuries in a single fall, code the fall for the highest level of injury. So this bolded italic line there is very important. If the patient has multiple injuries in a single fall, you're to code the fall of the highest level of injury. So I'm going to go through a couple definitions. These are standard definitions to describe whether there was an injury related to a fall. So the first is injury related to fall. This is defined as any documented injury that occurred as a result of or was recognized within a short period of time, hours to a few days, after the fall and attributed to the fall. So that is the definition of injury. J1900, A, the coding instructions. You'll need your cards to answer the scenarios. I told you it was going to either be 0, 1, or 2. 0 indicates none if the patient had no injurious fall since admission. 1 if the patient had 1 non-injurious fall since admission. And 2 indicating 2 or more injurious falls since admission. So the next definition, this is for J1900B, is injury except major. So injury except major includes skin tears, abrasions, lacerations, superficial bruises, hematomas, and sprains, or any fall-related injury that causes the patient to complain of pain. The coding instructions are the same. 0 indicating none if the patient had no injurious fall except major since admission. 1 if there was 1 injurious fall, except major, and two or more injurious falls except major. So it's very similar to J1900A. So the last definition here for J1900C is major injury. The definition of a major injury includes bone fractures, joint dislocations, closed head injuries with altered consciousness, and subdural hematoma. Coding instructions are the same: 0, none, 1 for 1, and 2 for 2 or more. So let's try these scenarios here, practice scenarios. So if we could have your enthusiastic participation here. So the first scenario reads as such. A nursing note states that Mrs. K slipped out of her wheelchair onto the floor during transfer from bed to the wheelchair. Before being assisted back into her bed, an assessment was completed that indicated no injury. So you are to code 1900A. The choices are 0, 1, or 2. Did Mrs. K have a fall, and what type of fall was it? And hold your, somebody's holding up more than one choice there. That's not fair. Okay, there's a lot of ones. This is great. You guys are getting this. So this is J1900A would be coded 1. The slipping onto the floor is considered a fall, and there was no injury indicated. Here's another softball scenario for you. I think you're going to get this one. The scenario reads, a nurse's note describes a patient who climbed over his bed rail and fell to the floor. On examination, he had a cut over his left eye and some swelling on his arm. He was sent to the emergency room where x-rays revealed no injury and neurological checks revealed no changes in mental status. Patient returned to the facility within 24 hours. So he had a cut over his left eye and some swelling on his arm. How would you code J1900B? 1, 0, 1, or 2? Don't be shy there. Okay, the majority, it looks like everyone even, in fact, had coded it 1, which is correct, very good. Lacerations and swelling are considered to be an injurious fall, except major, so that was coded correctly. The last scenario is a patient fell. This is under J1900C. To determine whether there was a major injury associated with a fall. So the scenario is a patient fell, lacerated her head, and was sent to the emergency room where a head CT scan revealed a subdural hematoma. The patient received treatment and returned to the facility after 2 days. So the choices are 0, 1, and 2. Did this patient have a major injury associated with a fall? And very good. That is correct. We code it 1 because a subdural hematoma, of course, is a major injury. So just in summary, right on time here, just remember all of Section J is new. It captures any falls since admission, and then you are to record whether there was an injury associated with the fall. It applies to these assessments, the planned discharge, unplanned discharge, and expired assessment. And just your homework, your action items when you get back to your facility. Probably want to educate your staff about Section J since this is a new section. This is a great opportunity to review your policies and procedures as they relate to fall reduction and prevention. And also consider how you are documenting falls and categorizing falls. Make sure your definitions meet the standards that are described so that you can ensure accurate data collection. And then, of course, use some of the practice scenarios with your staff. So thank you for your enthusiastic participation in Section J, and good luck to you.